Okay.
Testing. Thank you.
Is my light broken? My light is broken. See, I turn it on and that little red light doesn't come on.
It should be on.
It doesn't.
Do the little dots go on?
It does downstairs. It's on just so light doesn't come on.
Any cheaters? See it. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting Wednesday, September 22nd. Could I have roll call, please?
Yes, we have 10 present, 1 presiding, and 1 absent.
Let the record show that Commissioner Sorge is excused. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Thatcher to lead us in the prayer and the pledge.
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bow. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. At this time, I would call for any public comment on any item that's on tonight's agenda. And I understand we do have one to be read. So if you'll come to the microphone, please, and give us your name and address for the record, you can give your comment if it's on the agenda. Yeah. Just push that. There you go. You got the.
Hi, I'm Trudy Healy, 111 West Iron Street. And good evening, and hi, Bill. I've been missing you.
Thank you.
So tonight I'm going to speak on the progress my neighborhood has made in the last week, just from me speaking last week. I want to thank John Reardon for stopping by with Mr. Cambridge last week to walk the Iron Street corridor so I could show Mr. Cambridge some of the dangerous situations we are placed in our neighborhood. You know, the weeds are out of control, you know, fire dangers, stuff like that, junk vehicles. Then Thursday, we had our first neighborhood watch meeting in a lot for the 600, 700, 800 block of Maine in Colorado. So that was the first meeting for those people to speak on their experiences of what's been going on in that neighborhood. John Reardon was there for that, as was Officer Ryan Hardy. The citizens in that specific area spoke of their experiences dealing with prostitution, drug and crime, and then they were able to ask questions about how we can resolve some of these issues within our constraints. And people are committed, you know, people in the neighborhood are willing to do what we have to do. We want to help our neighborhood. So anyone have any ideas? We're there. And so it was a good meeting in that sense that we're coming together. On Friday, Bill, I'm sorry if I stepped on your toes because I just don't know all the rules yet. But I had done some research for the revitalization, the Uptown revitalization, and I went and met with Karen Burns to ask about what was available to Iron Street because I looked on the map, and the map showed that Iron Street fell within the corridor for revitalization. So we are looking for more lighting. Now that, you know, we're getting things cleaned up in our neighborhood, we want more lighting. And she mentioned something that we needed to start an SID, and I'm not sure that's where I want to talk to Bill. And maybe we can talk about starting an SID so we can get some lighting and help with sidewalks and things like that for making our neighborhood better. Sunday was a bit different. There was a woman within the neighborhood that had been asking for help to remove a pedophile squatter that had made himself a home in her backyard. It wasn't her camper, and he wasn't her renter. She had reached out to different entities to help her and had gotten nowhere and had threatened to burn down her house. I have police reports from when I went there specifically. I was going to try to help to move the motorhome, but was unsuccessful in finding a legit tow company to remove the motorhome, because the police would do their job. They would get rid of him, but then he would eventually come back because he would always come back to that motorhome. So even though the police got rid of him and he'd disappear, but he would always come back to that motorhome. And so what happened Sunday, I'll just kind of read. So with the help of the community on the 700 block alley of Montana and Colorado, we were able to successfully remove a junk motorhome belonging to Marty Richardson. Police officers were present to ensure our safety. This motorhome had a squatter who had been threatening and performing deviant acts in her backyard. As Marty Richardson admitted, this motorhome and 8 other junk vehicles on her property belonged to him. We assisted him in getting them off her property. This felt good. I mean, having people from throughout the community coming together, they just weren't from that neighborhood. They came from other places to help a neighbor in need. And then yesterday, I came home for lunch, and I was happy to see 3 community enrichment trucks on Iron Street. I mean, I'm feeling hopeful. And like I said, I want to reiterate, we are willing to help our neighborhood. You know, if someone's willing to lead, we're willing to do what we need to make our neighborhood safer and cleaner. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy.
And, so there were some people from Mr. Reardon's district and Mr. Anderson's district, and not everybody knows the rules, so maybe a little forgiving.
Not having what?
They don't know the rules,
Oh, okay.
so be a
If
little
any-
forgiving. Yeah.
If anybody in the audience, you're welcome to stay and listen, and if anybody would like to come to the microphone and just identify yourself and you can speak, we are happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Royce Fox. The person she's talking about was my daughter, where all these squatters took place. In fact, this Marty that's across the alley from where we remove these vehicles, he's like a backyard mechanic, is squatting on the property there without permission. It's up for sale. He don't even pay rent. They live in the garage. It's in filth, the whole area. Last year, I started building a fence. We got them out for a while. They tore the fence down. They cut it off, reverted back to their old ways. Today I had a utility company come in to mark it so we wouldn't hit the gas line. We're going to put in a steel fence again. Hopefully it don't get tore down. My daughter has some disabilities she's taken advantage of. She's been robbed 6 times, had her door kicked in 4 times this year, all with her police reports on the same property. And it's all up and down this alley and the whole neighborhood, and just about the time we do something, we're taking these vehicles down the street to where Marty said, well, we could pull them down there. We pushed 2 of them with him driving it, so he could retrieve them later and do whatever he's gonna do with them. The police officer handled it all, got us going on this, said this is the way to do it. None of them got license. Probably someone could even be stolen for I know. None of them are registered. None of them ran. As we're doing this, here comes an old guy out of the block on the next block down. He says, this car in front here's been here 8 months. Nobody will get rid of it. He's called the police. Nobody will take care of it. He said, will you guys take this with you right now? I'll help you push it. I said, we'll be back. I said, I can't help you today, but we'll be back. And it's an ongoing problem. And when put the fence up, this and that. And thing is, let's say you're out at the country club. Say you have a nice lawn, sure, that's a lot better neighborhood. Say you don't have a fence on your property, you don't need one, it's right up to the sidewalk. How would you like to have to build a fence to keep people off your property? For people pulling cars into your yard, or setting up a tent, or just, and this other woman comes out of her house where we're putting the cars down by the trestle there. So they said they came home 3 days ago and this guy's sleeping on their couch. They had to get rid of him. This is all up and down that neighborhood. Hopefully we can take care of this.
Thank you, Ed. Just give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Barbara Cass, and I live at 809 South Main. This is our neighborhood that we're talking about. I have lived next to the problem house, have watched the prostitution, have watched the drug dealing, have watched the violence, picked the needles up out of my yard. They have targeted my dogs. Their most recent thing is throwing poisoned meat into my backyard, animal parts from my dogs. I have small dogs. They are no harm to anybody. They're not out in my yard barking. I turn them out. I bring them in. 3 weeks ago, I had a young man enter my house at 2:30 in the morning. Had my dogs not set up a howl over it, I wouldn't have known he was there. He was altered. He was very, very out of his mind. We were able to get him out of the house without any violence to ourselves or to the young man. I have been on the phone to our sheriff's department repeatedly. The officers always respond. They have been awesome that way, but not a damn thing is happening with that house. There is a building in the backyard that they have built that the county has said it's not large enough for them to go in and do anything, which is bullshit. It's half the size of his home. They're taking pots in there. We have pictures this week that will be going to the sheriff's office that it looks like they're setting up a grow operation. The trailer in the backyard, on the back alley, they've got fencing up there that half the time is falling down and obstructing the alley. And they've told the city that the trailer is for storage. It's not. There's people living in it. My neighbors on the other side of 815, which is the problem house there, the sheriff's office knows about it, they begged the council, they begged our sheriff's office, they went to the county attorney, they went to the state's attorney, and nothing was done. They were in that house a year and a half and sold and left. I'm not selling my home, and I'm not leaving. And we got a problem because there's a lot of people calling for some vigilante justice on our street. I don't want to see it come to that. So something has got to be done for the safety of the people in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else care to speak on any item on tonight's agenda? Please give me your name and address for the record, sir.
My name is James Denny. I live at 635 South Main Street, and we've been in Butte, my wife Christian and I, for about a year and a half. I work down at the airport, and it's amazing and just saddened by the stuff that goes on. I mean, we've been victims of just small stuff, and unfortunately we don't have to deal with the neighbors exactly next door that the lady before us did. But, you know, 4 times in the last 6 months we've had, you know, items stolen off a front porch. That's just personal items. 3 or 4 counts of mail that have been missing. We've got one of those Ring cameras, and people walk right up and take it. And you know, we've talked to the police officers, we've called and made reports, and you know, asked what's going on, because I mean, you can see it all over the internet and social media. It's not just Main Street; it's all over town. And time again, the cops say we're doing all we can do. We can't arrest anybody because we don't have room. We can cite them and then release them the next day. That story's kind of getting old. I mean, I understand the addiction problem, and it's not just here, it's all across the country, and it is a problem. And at what point, though, is, you know, I know they have to reach a point to where they want help before they can, you know, truly get the help they want. But at what point is, you know, the citizen and their private property, you know, when is that going to be taken account for? Why should we have to suffer because of somebody else's, you know, problems or not wanting to get help? It's just frustrating because, again, time and time again, I hear the same thing. We can't do anything. So anyway, hopefully we can come together with the Neighborhood Watch and with your all's help to see if we can, you know, make it better. I love Butte. Like I said, I've been here a year and a half and I love it here. And I just want to see a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the items that are on tonight's agenda? Okay. And the item that Ms. Anderson put together for us is at the end of our agenda, but it won't take very long to get through. So you're welcome to stay, and we'll continue this conversation. Thank you. Okay, moving along to Section 1, bid openings. Oh, report of the chair, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry, Colleen. I apologize, you did tell me that. We have a letter to be read into the record.
This is regarding, this public comment agenda regarding communication number 2021-436. It's from Robert F. Edwards, Jr., Council of Commissioners. Counter to what was reported in the Sunday edition of the Montana Standard, I am not now okay on the access issue and the taking of Wyoming Street. I spare you all the lengthy rant about taking public property and access only to give it to a private party to utilize as a tool for investment leverage. This matter could be simply resolved with a lot line adjustment and variance, keeping Wyoming Street as publicly accessible thoroughfare while giving Praxis the space they claim they need. Even the street beautification could occur as proposed with the public-private partnership. If you won't seek this resolution, then I ask you to at least hold off on approving the street vacation until an easement can be agreed upon by all involved parties. Robert F. Edwards.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. All right, I believe we're done with the public comment. At this time, there's a report of the chair, which I'm going to forego because we have plenty of other important things to do tonight. Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. We do have one presentation tonight, and it's item 1, communication number 2021-401, Margie Seckham, Action Inc., CEO, requesting council commissioners for their concurrence for a presentation. Well, it's tonight. It was originally, it was postponed from September 1st, to provide information about our work to address homelessness in Butte and how funds contributed by Butte-Silver Bow support that work. Ms. Seckham, the floor is yours.
I'm good? Okay. Good evening. My name is Margie Seckham. I'm the CEO of Action Inc., 25 West Silver Street in Butte. I think there is a handout going around. I hope everyone has it. Chairwoman Shaw, members of the commission, Chief Executive Gallagher, and all other representatives of the county, thank you for allowing us some time to share some information with you about some of the work that's being done on a system level and on a service level to address homelessness in our community, which, by the way, I think overlaps a lot with some of the things you just heard. And so I want to just start by saying, I applaud the efforts of that neighborhood to create a neighborhood council. And at one time, we were working toward creating neighborhood councils around the community, and we didn't get very far, but I think it might be time to revisit that. It's a tool for keeping our neighborhoods safe. So, okay, having said that, I want to also thank you all for your public service. This has been an incredibly hard year for everyone. And my team is on the front line, and so, and having been on 10,000 Zoom calls with people on the front line, you see the fatigue, and everybody's still stepping up. So thanks to all in public service and to those frontline people. I just want to give you a bit of an overview for those of you who haven't heard this before. I'm sorry, it's a review for some of you. Action Inc. is a private nonprofit corporation. Our mission is to develop pathways out of poverty through innovative, community-based, collaborative approaches. We are a 501c3. We have an 18-member board of directors that cover, our organization covers the 6-county region of southwestern Montana, and we have representatives on our board from all of those counties. We have 100 employees and a $6.5 million annual budget. We're one of 1,000 community action agencies across the country that work on poverty issues and pathways out of poverty. So we're part of a network that we stay in close touch with and work on evidence-based approaches with. Again, we're serving 6 counties: Beaverhead, Anaconda, Deer Lodge, Granite, Madison, Powell, and we're headquartered in Butte-Silver Bow County at 25 West Silver Street. We invested in that neighborhood, the highest poverty neighborhood in the county, back in 2014. in order to, A, provide great access to people to our services, but also we know that investment, when you make an investment in an area like that, that all boats rise together. So with new sidewalks, neighborhood council, and community garden, and some new housing development, this is a neighborhood that has seen incredible improvements and changes over the last 7 or 8 years. We serve about 6,000 people annually through our various services, and we do that with core values that we live by. The first one being compassion. You can't do this work without it, so people who come to us are not judged. We look through a trauma-informed lens, and so when people come to us, we're not asking what's wrong with them, we're asking, how did you get here? And how can we help you get past this? So our services are really designed to do that. And not only do we work on a service level by providing direct services to people, but we're working on systems. So for example, with the homeless problem, we are working on an evidence-based system based on the continuum of care concepts of housing first, coordinated entry, and there is a very deep collaboration happening around this issue that you may not know about. It's very behind the scenes, but it's very structured, and there's great promise for solving some of these problems. So collaboration is one of our core values, and I hope that you all see us as a partner in making this community stronger, healthier, and better. That is our intent, and we take collaboration very seriously because we know we can't do this by ourselves. It truly does take a village, but there are really systematic collaborations being built between agencies that allow us to have a greater impact. So we appreciate very much the collaboration with Butte-Silver. And there are many levels on which we're collaborating around the pandemic, as well as long-term housing, affordable housing, and I think you all know that housing landscape has changed dramatically over the last year. It's making it very difficult to house people that are homeless, and it's we've just lost landlords who've been selling off properties. They lost their income for over a year because of the eviction moratorium. So we just don't have the resources out there that we once had. So this is going to be a long-term piece of work that Action Inc. will partner with others to develop, including the county, I hope. So we're currently working on some permanent supported housing units. We're in the process of planning with the architectural firm out of Helena to design those. And we will build those units that will be addressing the frequent utilizer population. Those are the folks that are frequently using the ER, the jail, the crisis house, and the shelter. We know who they are. We have a systematic way of identifying them. We have a by name list, and we have a team of people who case conference weekly, 14 different agencies working together on finding permanent solutions for those folks. So Action Inc. was born out of the community action movement and the war on poverty, and the legislation passed by Congress under President Lyndon Johnson's leadership on this. So we in Butte were incorporated in 1965, and so for 56 years have been working on poverty issues. First named the Butte Anti-Poverty Council. I don't know if anybody here would even remember that. Then the Human Resources Council, and then we rebranded in 2015 and became Action Inc. Our programs and services, we do manage, own and manage some affordable housing. We also have housing vouchers, so people can find housing in the private market, and we can help pay their rent. In this case, they would pay their portion of the rent based on their income, and it would be then subsidized. We are the grantee for Head Start, so we're working on early childhood education and getting our kids who are living in poverty ready for school. Incredibly important for those kids to get that Head Start, and we're very proud of the work being done there. We provide heat and energy assistance, so the LEAP program you may be familiar with. Also Energy Share, helping people who have shut-off notices to be able to get their heat turned back on, very often families and elderly people. We have crews that are out weatherizing homes in the 6-county region, so that when we provide that heat assistance, it's in a house that's energy efficient. Food assistance and nutrition assistance, we do provide meals for the homeless, but we also run a summer nutrition program, so when the schools are not in session, we're providing breakfast and lunch at many different sites in the community. In the last 2 years, the number of meals served has increased by almost 300%. So I think we served close to 60,000 meals this past summer. And then our homeless services on the adult side, there's a number of ways that we work with the homeless. We provide rapid rehousing services. So if somebody is literally homeless, we're working on housing navigation to find homes for them. We can help pay for deposits and rent. Sometimes we can stay with people for longer periods of time. It just depends on, some people just have a light touch and they're fine. If we can help pay their deposit and their first month's rent, then they're good to go. So, and then some people need a deeper level of service and case conferencing, case management, and navigation. We just have recently dived into youth homelessness. It's been on our strategic plan to get after this problem that we know exists, but it's so hidden that we couldn't quantify it, and we couldn't find them. So we recently received funding to create 6 transitional housing units. A local landlord is working with us to lease a structure for that. And we also have funding now for crisis navigation for homeless youth. So we found when we opened the doors of the transitional housing that they showed up. So we're now able to address that problem in a really meaningful way, and have a lot of partners in that as well. I wanted to give you a report on how we spent your money and the taxpayers' money in this past year. This has been a long partnership with Butte-Silver and the county and Action Inc. to address the problems of indigent people. And so the contract amount is $172,000. The purpose of that contract is to provide homeless services, including diversion, direct housing assistance, case management, and housing navigation. One of the things people may not realize is that we are also using those funds to do burials of indigent deceased people. We did 26 of those this past year, the most we've ever done, and there are 13 waiting to be processed right now. So this is taking a big chunk of the contract. And I think that's important for you all to know. There are 3 different funding sources that feed into our adult homeless services, including the county money, and then a federal source called the Continuum of Care Grant. And then the Emergency Solutions Grant. So we have 2 federal grants and this county grant that feed into these services. In a typical year, we have about a little over $300,000 to provide those services. This past year, with the CARES Act, we have a boatload of Emergency Solutions Grant money, and it's been very difficult to spend because of the parameters around it. So it is a great frustration. There are so many needs, like, why don't you let us build some housing, some affordable housing? But there, there are just, the rules just don't allow us to spend it out. We don't expect that we'll be able to. And then the county, of course, the same amount, and our continuum of care grant we get annually is, again, it's about $90,000. So this year, we had $921,704 to spend on these services. Some of that we have till 2023 to spend. We will, we're working on some creative ways to do that, one of which would be to help the Butte Rescue Mission. The low barrier shelter that they provide to the community is an essential and critical service. And so we want to make sure that they are able to stay operating. So that's one area that we are looking into in terms of how to structure that, to use federal money in a faith-based kind of organization. So the amount expended this year out of the county fund was $152,214. As per our contract, we generally keep 1 month of funding to carry over just to have startup money. We did carry over a little bit more this year, so and that's just because we had so much COVID money that we're trying to use the federal money first. Our administrative costs were a little over $10,000, and that's 7% under the contract. 10% is the maximum. So we're we always try to be very efficient in keeping our admin costs down. The cost of burials last year was over $26,000. And then the personnel costs, which is helps fund our case managers and our housing navigator, is almost $72,000. In terms of the people served, I show a breakdown there of how many, the percentages of people served by each grant, and you can see that the county grant serves more people than the others. And that's because we're able to use that grant for diversion, which means if we're able to connect somebody who's literally homeless with family or friends, and they live in Kentucky or somewhere, we are able to get them to Kentucky, but we do that with a warm handoff. So, in other words, there's somebody that we connect with that is there to receive them when they get a bus ticket. Also, lots of motel vouchers. When the shelter's full and it's cold outside, or there's a family with kids, we're utilizing a lot of motel vouchers to keep people off the streets, and particularly because of COVID, non-congregate shelter is really critical. So that's been a great expense for us this past year. And then finally, the types of services. I do want to mention that the folks that got those 392 people who got those services were direct services. We also then had provided case management and housing navigation to 622 households. And then the types of services, there's a couple of pie charts there that break it down for you. The county funds were used. You can see that that gas vouchers and taxi vouchers were a big part of that. Bus tickets, burials. And then we did some rapid rehousing, but again, we had those other resources this year. And motel vouchers are the big areas of spending. As we look forward, I want you to know and have confidence in the work that's being done by the Continuum of Care Coalition to really build systems in our community to address these issues, so that we don't have people just going from agency to agency without any kind of bigger plan for permanent housing. And we are working with the Community Development Department, the Housing Authority, the Community Health Center on creating more units to address this housing crisis. So we look forward to creating more resources for housing through the collaborations we have. And I hope you, again, view Action Inc. as the partner with you all in this work to solve this problem together. So thank you. That's all I have to present, but I'm very happy to answer questions. And I also did want to introduce a couple of our team members that came with me tonight. So Connie Turnus Daniels, let's stand, Connie, is our Chief of Operations and has a big job trying to keep all the systems working. And our very extraordinary Homeless Services Manager, Tracy MacArthur, who so competently has put together one of the best coordinated entry systems in the state. And I know that you could all be proud of that work. We are on statewide calls all the time, and Butte stands out in that effort on a regular basis. So I have a great team, and they're doing great work for you all. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Margie. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair Shaw. Margie, thank you.
Yes.
As you know, and I don't know how other people know, but I'm a huge fan of Action Inc. and the work that you guys do. Like as you said tonight with our folks here in the crowd, I guess you would call it, there's an ongoing issue here, and obviously they see it and you guys see it. And so one of the things that I love most about our great community is our partnership, and whether it be $172,000 in a monetary partnership, or whether it be hard work, kindness, and compassion that we get out of partnerships from just our neighbors is truly the thing I love. So I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, 622 households received housing. Obviously, this money is going to good use. Obviously, it's very necessary. And I just, like I said, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you and your team's work and all the efforts you guys do to get people healthy, safe, and off the streets. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Thatcher. The team I have is extraordinary, and they're tired. So it's nice to hear that. Thank you very much.
So Margie,
Yes.
a lot of people here may not know about the Continuum of Care committee that you have put together. You don't work as an island.
Right.
You've got many partnerships throughout the county. Could you just give everyone a little bit of a briefing on what that is exactly?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, because I think it's really important knowledge for you to have. As commissioners of this county, any federal money that's coming in for homelessness is coming through a grant called the Continuum of Care. It's a funding stream, and it is meant to address various stages of homelessness. And in our particular county, we have 2 grants. That one goes to the Housing Authority, and it is for permanent supported housing vouchers. So those folks are living in the community, and they have some mental health services wrapped around them, because these would be people who are disabled and need that support in order to maintain stable housing. The second grant is the rapid rehousing piece, which is operated by Action Inc. And that is a tool to help people who are literally homeless get into housing as rapidly as possible. And we do that using a housing first model, which means that we don't put up any barriers. And so, if somebody, regardless of their problems and their challenges, we're getting them off the street regardless of that. So we have a coalition that is made up of 20 some different agencies. We meet monthly, and the coalition is really, its job is to build the system so that ultimately everybody gets permanently housed. Now, are we there yet? No, we are not. And housing has become just a real barrier. The housing stock has become a real barrier to that system. So, but this is a coalition that advances applications for more funding. And we last year did apply for grants for youth homelessness and advance that to the state continuum of care. The state of Montana then submits one application for all of its homeless services across the state of Montana. So we are the recipient now of 2 grants to address youth homelessness, youth and young adults. So that this is a coalition made up of housing agencies, the folks who address mental health issues, substance abuse, disabilities, the school district, and again, there are 24, 25 different agencies who are official members and participate in monthly meetings.
Thank you. And also, Margie, I want to ask you and put you on the spot, but we are seeing a huge amount of homeless people. I believe they're coming into Butte. I've seen quite a bit of action at the bus stop. I see folks with their backpacks look like they just got dropped off into town. And I wanted to know, because I'm hearing it from other people, it might be a knee-jerk rumor kind of situation, but I am hearing that there are more people coming into Butte, and we can expect even more because of housing, because of the fact that we have a pretty doable cost of living. And you're on the front line of homeless situations, so maybe you could have somebody talk about that.
It's Tracy MacArthur who's on the front line. So if I may turn the microphone over to Tracy, I think she can best
Absolutely.
answer that question.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, we
Thanks.
are seeing a huge increase in our homelessness. Pre-COVID, we had what we call a by name list, which is a real-time list of people that are literally homeless in our community. We had that down to 32. As of today, we had 110 people on that list. And those are just household, like whether it's family or individuals, those are people that we know of that have come to Action Inc. We do an intake and we do an assessment and we look at their vulnerabilities, and like Margie talked about, we do have a coordinated entry system, and we have 14 agencies that we meet weekly, and we case conference the individuals and just try to prioritize their vulnerabilities and see what services we can get them into. We had 103 last week. We have 110 today, and we housed four households just last week. So our inflow used to be, we used to outmatch that with our outflow, and what that means is like the people coming in on our list, we're seeing an increase. But we used to, with our outflow as far as housing, we were having better means of getting them housed now, or back then. Now with the housing crisis, we're just, and we're not, it used to be that way as come to Butte because our cost of housing was lower than a lot of like Missoula or Bozeman, Billings, but now that's not the case anymore. A 2-bedroom house or apartment here could be $1,000 to $1,200 a month, and a lot of our folks, they're low income, on limited income. You know, we have some that are on Social Security that might be getting $800 a month. There's no way that they can afford the housing. So that used to be the case. It was always, come to Butte or send them to Butte, but they can house you quicker, but we're not seeing that now.
And these are all folks that come to you, and so it's
So
more
there's
of a,
people
I
out
won't say
there,
reactive, but I'm wondering, and we all of us out here, and every one of us as commissioners have people calling saying that people are living in their cars, they're hauling in their, whatever it is that has 4 sides on it and a roof, and so I'm just wondering if there's any kind of a sense or a feel for homeless that are not coming to your awesome agency, which provides so many services.
Yeah.
I just would wonder if you have a take on that.
we want, and that's why, I mean, we even reached out with, with Ed Randall and his team, just, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we met with them as far as, you know, people staying in tents and in their trailers, campers that we don't know about.
Right.
And we want people to be sent to our agency, so at least we can have a take and know who is out there in the community and what we can do as far as getting them into the services. And then at least we can get them into supportive services while we're trying to find housing. Right now, the only place that we have for them to refer if they are literally homeless is at the shelter. And unfortunately, they have limited beds, and they've been at 90% capacity for the low barrier shelter, and then their restorative program's full. And we're seeing an increase in families right now, and so we put the families up in motels right now while we're waiting for them, either get them into housing or when we can get a family bed open at the shelter. It's just, we had the first day of school. It tears me up, I'm sorry. It's been kind of an emotional day today. Like Margie said, everybody's getting tired, but first day of school, 8 o'clock in the morning, we had a mom with 3 kids, dirty, no shoes on. It was supposed to be, the first day of school, and they're at our door because they had been sleeping outside at the park in a dugout. So that's what we're seeing.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Margie or her team? Well, thank you so much, Margie. Excuse me. Here we go. Josh, and then Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Definitely no
Commissioner-
questions, just comments on just definitely thank you and keep fighting the fight. Definitely appreciate it. I've had some experiences in the past working with Tracy, and it was definitely the outlets you guys do have are ones that I still have no idea of all the ones you do have, but definitely appreciate what you guys do, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. One thing that Tracy didn't mention in that situation is that she and some of the other members of the team are making sure the kids get to school and pick them up after school, as the mom doesn't have transportation. So we're doing things as are others in our community in the healthcare arena and other agencies that we wouldn't normally be doing, just to make sure people are safe. Particularly when there are kids in the situation. So,
Okay. Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again, Margie, and your team for just coming in and explaining it and being so informational to the people, or hopefully there's a lot of people listening out there, what you do for us. I mean, just saying, like with the kiddos and what Tracy, the lunch programs, getting those kids to school, the homeless, not taking anybody, staying biased throughout this whole thing, making sure that all are taken care of no matter what. It's so much appreciative. And just explaining to the public of what you really do for our community, and we thank you all for what you really do. So thank you.
thank you, Commissioner Mankins.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thanks again for all your work. I know you guys have a passion for what you do, and it shows, and you are one big tool we have in our toolbox right now, and we do thank you.
We're here for you. Thank you all very much.
Okay. All right, moving on to anything else? Section 2, communications. Item 1 is communication number 2021-131. Ed Lester, Butte-Silver Sheriff, requesting Council Commissioners' concurrence and authorization for the Chief Executive to sign the MOU between Butte-Silver and the Southwest Montana Drug Task Force. I talked to Sheriff Lester today, and we need to continue holding this in abeyance as they craft this new MOU, or some of the details of the MOU, so we will hold that in abeyance. Item 2 is communication number 2021-299. Tristan Thomas, residing in Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners to authorize Tristan Thomas to purchase the following property located at 2422 Pine Street, Butte, Montana, 59701. And my understanding that this is being surveyed, and it does take time, and there's a process involved. And until I hear from the Land Services Department, I will hold this in abeyance. Moving on to item 3, communication number 2021-335, Michael and Kelly Ann Hoven, 241 William Street, Walkerville, Montana, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to purchase vacant land currently owned by Butte-Silver. The land we are hoping to acquire includes a .06 acre parcel in a segment of another 10 acre tract. And this also falls into a need for a survey, and that survey is also in the process of being done, so we will hold that in abeyance. Item 4 is Communication 2021-351, Hannah Van Wetter, Foothold co-founder, CEO, requesting Council Commissioners' consideration to sell the city-county vacant lot at the corner of 350 East Granite Street, legally described as Thornton Addition, South 13, Township 03 North, Range 08, West Block 3, Lot 12, Moonlight, West 10 feet of Lot 1, Block 7. And this is a newer one that we received recently, and it is sitting in Land Sales Committee. They did not have a meeting this month, so it'll be held in abeyance until we get their recommendation back to this body. Item 5 is Communication number 2021-401, Margie Seckham, Action Inc., CEO, requesting Council Commissioners for the concurrence for a presentation on Wednesday this evening, September 22nd, to provide information about our work to address homelessness in Butte and have funds contributed by BSB support the work. And we did, of course, have that presentation, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication number 2021-401 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-401 on file. Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
Yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 6 is communication number 2021-406, Kelly Katani, MSU Extension, Silverbow County 4-H Youth Development Family Consumer Science Agent, requesting Council of Commissioners for their concurrence for a presentation on September 15th, 2021 agenda for the discussion of annual funding for the MSU Extension Office. We had that presentation last week, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication number 2021-406 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-406 on file. Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 7, communication number 2021-423, Tina Master, Discovery House Program Director, requesting Council of Commissioners for their concurrence to make a presentation on September 15th, 2021, per J.P. Gallagher's request. She actually just said she had forgotten about it, and she was very upset that she'd missed that opportunity, but we will reschedule that to October 13th, and that will be noted in the next communication. And we'll hold that in abeyance until that date. Item 8, communication number 2021-435, Kathy Griffith, Butte Emergency Food Bank Director, requesting Council of Commissioners for their concurrence to make a presentation on Aid for the Needy grant on September 15th, 2021, per J.P. Gallagher's request. And we did have that presentation last week. So Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication number 2021-435 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-435 on file. Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 9, communication number 2021-436, Dylan Pipinich, Assistant Planning Director, requesting Council of Commissioners for their concurrence to hold a public hearing on September 22nd, 2021, to hear public comment on zone change application rezone 21-000003. And we had to reschedule that to October 6th, 2021 agenda, so we will hold that in abeyance until October 6th. Item 10, communication number 2021-446, Charlie Brown, 10 North Dixon Street, Anaconda, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to purchase land located on the 800 to 900 block of North Idaho Street. I would have it surveyed and then have it legally described as within the boundaries of the Raven Addition. I would pay for the survey and the market value of the land to build a single-family residence. This is sitting in Land Sales Committee for their recommendation back to this body, so we will hold this in abeyance. Item 11, communication number 2021-447, Dan Dennehy, Butte-Silver Office of Emergency Management Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to allow the request for proposals to be opened at the council's regular meeting on October 6, 2021, regarding the public safety software, computer-aided dispatch records management, RFP. And we will hold that in abeyance until October 6th. Item 12 is communication number 2021-448. Pat Holland, Government Buildings Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to allow the request for proposals be opened at the council's regular meeting on October 6th regarding the Mother Lode Theater fire suppression and annunciation system. And we will hold that in abeyance for that RFP on October 6th. Item 13, communication number 2021-452. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening for October 13th, 2021 for the Mercury Street rebuild. This project will rebuild Mercury Street from Shields to Arizona. We will hold that in abeyance until the bid opening on October 13th. Item 14, communication number 2021-472. Allison Anderson, 421 West Iron Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to address the problems with drugs, crime, and public safety that is concerning in Butte. I would also like an update on Commissioner Shea's nuisance proposal. So at this time, I would ask Ms. Anderson to come to the microphone. And I promise you that Commissioner Shea will reiterate on the record the status of that public nuisance ordinance. It's all for you.
Good evening. And I did get an email back, and so I do understand. I wanted to reiterate the need for such an ordinance, which I think we've successfully done that.
What's that?
I said I think we've successfully done that. You know, I loved Margie's communication. I think Action Inc. is an amazing organization, and I'm sure they are tired. I mean, I'm sure they are tired. So are we, you know, with a lot of, you know, poor Barbara and, you know, the stuff that's going on next door to her. You know, this week I've been chatting with some of my neighbors too. They are drug addicted. They are homeless, some of them. They are not employed. And so maybe Action Inc. Would be an avenue to suggest to them. I've heard some pretty sad stories. I've offered some hugs and shared some hugs. You know, these are people too. I totally understand that. But it's stressful living in these neighborhoods where, you know, I encountered a kid who was freshly out of jail, who I know has a lot of mental health issues. You know, he had bear spray and a knife and hypodermic needles falling out of his pocket. You know, I'm just trying to live and work and raise my kid. Trudy said, we'll do what we can do. You know, we're open for a conversation. I'm a little salty about the cleanup still, if we're going to be honest. I really thought that that would be a way that we could get together and help some of these neighbors and say, hey, you know, let's clean this up. And so I've done that. I've organized a cleanup, and I've gotten some donations from some businesses, and so we'll do that next weekend. But I think we need to keep having the conversation. I think we need to keep coming into these neighborhoods. I think we need to keep seeing these people as, you know, human beings. It's scary though, you guys. Like, you don't live in my neighborhood, so some of it's scary. But I think if we come together, you know, with some community organizations and some some well-thought-out plans, maybe we can get something done. I was a little curious about what she said, the funds from the CARES Act, and they can't build homes. I know that it's very specific from the Treasury what you can and can't use, but what about some of the drug addiction programs that we don't have? I mean, they have, okay, so meth is a bad deal, really bad deal. Some of them never, ever, ever recover from that. But, you know, I hate to see them fall off, I mean, into the dark abyss, right? I don't know. Some sort of a committee, I don't know what you guys have going on. I don't know what your plan is. I don't know how you plan to address it. They just can't all be left in our neighborhood. For us to be policing our neighborhood is the point we're trying to get across. That's the point I'm trying to get across anyway. I know my neighbors. I talk to them. Like I said, you know, I help them when I can. So that's all.
Allison, I just want to say that we have law enforcement, of course, and we have community enrichment, and we have ordinances that back up both of those departments. And it's very frustrating when we see an ordinance and it, you know, needs to be observed, and if it's in violation, then we expect, you know, instant results. But there's so much behind the ordinances that have to be followed. There's steps to be followed. You can't just, I have two cars, I live just up the street, and there's two cars right below me that have been sitting there for quite a while, and our departments have come out. I make sure they're not stolen, and then I, you know, asked, and they have flat tires, I asked it, what's next? We cannot just take personal property and take it away. And there is so much behind the scenes that has to be done, just as one example. And law enforcement, the same thing. They feel, I'm sure, as frustrated as we do in a lot of ways, and I'm sure Ed Lesser can attest to that. They have to follow the letter of the law. Yep. And they are out there, and we are trying to, I'm not saying that there aren't holes in this and there are some glitches and problems, but obviously we all need to get together as citizens. Mm-hmm. I'm a commissioner, but I'm also a citizen. I live up here a block from the jail, and we have the same problems that you have all the way down on Iron Street. None of us is really immune to all of that, and I love the fact that you're all here tonight to listen and to try to grasp what's going on. But the homeless situation is big. We have, the moratorium was lifted on rentals. There's so many jobs out there. I mean, if anybody wanted a job, they can get a bonus practically and get a job, but I don't understand why that is not happening. If there are opportunities out there, I believe, now that these moratoriums are lifted, but it is a conundrum. And before I go any further, I did want to ask Commissioner Shea if she could just give everybody an update on the record. People are listening from, you know, on their TVs or on their laptops, but I would like Commissioner Shea to please just give an update on the public nuisance ordinance that we are proposing to try to draft. So Commissioner Shea, do you mind bringing us up to date?
I don't mind at all. Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to commend you and Trudy and everybody that's been taking an active role in their own neighborhoods. It's really wonderful to see. Your hard work is super appreciated. I love to hear the compassion in your voice, Allison, because the problems that we have in this community and in all communities right now are cultural. Mm-hmm. They're societal, they're systemic, and they've been coming for a very, very long time, starting in the mid-'80s when certain programs were cut. Programs for mental health, programs for drug addiction, things like that. They've left people with no resources. I think that what Margie said tonight was it just hit the nail on the head. It's going to take all of us, and a rising tide does float all boats. When you clean your properties up and you encourage your neighbors to clean their properties up. I know that when I drive by a really, really nice house, I go, oh, I might mow my lawn this weekend, you know? You just are motivated and inspired by one another. Mm-hmm. And so I love the outreach that you're doing to your neighbor who is suffering from substance abuse disorder. I think that's great that you're doing that. I want you to know that, again, what Chairman Shaw said, you're not alone. I had a drug house next to me for 2.5 years. It took commitment from me, from law enforcement, and this was many years, I think Sheriff Lester was just a patrol officer at that time, but it took a lot of commitment from a lot of agencies, from the neighbors. I know you don't want to hear that, but it is a reality, and I want you to understand that you're not alone. So I do really understand where you're coming from. And I can assure you that nobody wants to do nothing. Everybody up here wants the same things for our community. You guys want the same things we want. We all need to find a good way to make it happen. Regarding the email that I sent you, and I'll just say it on the record, there are laws on the books currently that do support the behaviors that we don't want to see, that don't support, that would allow us to enforce against the behaviors that you don't want to see. I would encourage continue to call our community enrichment department. They're fantastic. Our sheriff's department, our police officers, they do as much as they possibly can. It's the reality of having a full jail, lack of resources, vulnerable people. Throw on top of that drug addiction, it's very, very difficult. So to the nuisance ordinance. The communication was put in suspense so we could research it. As I said to you, we can only write things into an ordinance that are harmonious with state laws and constitutional rights. And the laws that we have on our books now, they are. That doesn't mean we're not trying to find something, to find some small thing that we can add to it that can give property owners, neighbors with bad neighbors, some sort of relief. So I want to assure you, it's slated to come back out of the suspense file in November. They don't go in there and die. We actually follow up on them. And as we're working with the county attorney, she's been making calls all over the state. She's called other states. She's doing what she can. We're all doing what we can. I apologize that it takes forever. The wheels of the government turn super slow by design. So we are working on it. We hear you.
I know.
And you're appreciated, all of you.
Any other comments from council members? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I appreciate what you're doing. I can contest, when I first got in this job, I had taken over an area that started these neighborhood things more than 10 years ago. And they've made huge progress. It's a lot of work on the neighborhood. You gotta have good neighbors, you all gotta stick together. Every now and then you take a couple steps forward and you go back a step. But if you keep up the hard work and you guys work together, I appreciate everybody you got in your neighborhood that's trying to help you. It's a struggle, and it doesn't happen overnight, but I commend you for what you're doing, and that's Butte proud, and that's what we all want to be like, and we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Chief Executive Gallagher, and then Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman Shaw, and Allison, thank you for what you're doing. We've talked a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. I understand, as you say, frustration on the cleanup. I do want you to know that we are working to get one. That's not to say that you can't organize one on your own. We are working with Montana Tech to really do an extensive cleanup with their groups and stuff on October 23rd, and we'll work with all of our departments to try to organize that. On the mental health issue, we understand, and part of the frustration is there's been loss of services since COVID. We have agencies that shut down services locally. We've met, as Tracy MacArthur kind of alluded to, Ed Randall, myself, and Karen Burns, we talked with Action Inc. about what we can do, how we address these people that we're coming in contact with in these trailers, because there's a lot of issues that go along with it. There's families, there's mental illness, there's drugs, there's prostitution, there's all kinds of different things with it that our Community Enrichment Enforcement Division is not equipped to deal with. So we're talking about how we can support those services. We're working with St. James, we're working with the Continuum of Care group to work on those issues. I know they're not immediate, but there are wheels turning. And so we are addressing the things that you're talking about, and I understand your frustration. You live with it every day. I understand that. Nobody wants that next door to them. Barb is a classmate of mine. I don't want to see somebody have to deal with somebody walking into their house. We feel your pain. It doesn't help, but government does. We're working on things, but it's not immediate. But understand, we are working on the issues. We are meeting collectively to try to address the issues that you're talking about today. And thank you for what you're doing in your own neighborhood. But we're working on that, okay?
So, and if there could be some kind of an outreach too into our neighborhoods, or, you know, where do we go? When I spoke last week, I said, what are the protocols, you know, that we should be following? How can we help to address this, you know? Some of them are dangerous. You know, I don't want to let that just slide. I mean, there's a guy that was caught 3 different times the other night by Neighborhood Watch, lurking in the shadows. I mean, he's been in and out of Warm Springs and slit someone's throat. You know, the next day he's smoking meth in an abandoned car. So
The wheels on that are, I'm sorry, is to call law enforcement. They are the ones that are equipped to deal with that at that time.
I did.
I know, and, you know.
They came, as they do.
Yeah.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much. As far as help navigating some of this, my apologies. I've gotten emails from some of you, and with things going on in my personal life, I'm sure half of you's heard about some of my health issues, but I'm slowly getting back on the mend, but I'll reach out to you via email and schedule a time with everybody there, or at a time and place that works for people, and I will do what I can to help just go through what's going on and everything. I can update people. I have 5 or 6 people. I had one of my appointments at the hospital today. I was walking through there. I had 3 different nurses who live in 3 different parts of town address this exact same issue, and just asked me where things were standing on it. And I told them the same thing. You know, we're looking at it, but it's a very slow process. I started talking with Commissioner Shea. We started talking about this last December, about putting together the ordinance, and now we're a year past that, or close to it, and we started talking on it and bringing it forward because we're both getting calls from outside people for the last year and a half, and we've made calls, and I will talk with the Sheriff's Department and just see what we can do maybe to get rid of some of these vehicles, and what some of the protocols are, and what I can do as a commissioner up here to help with some of those things, whether it's a funding mechanism or what it is. And there's 3 of them on the 500 block of Broadway. There was somebody hit a car, drunk driver hit a car, slammed into it, totaled it, and totaled the one in front of it. And both of these vehicles are just sitting there taking a valuable parking space halfway in the street. So it's one of those things that it just takes a long time for these things to get moving, unfortunately. But any questions that I can answer, I'll schedule a time with you and your neighbors to do that.
Thank you. And we did have a chance to speak with Sheriff Lester last week, and so he assured us what his department can be doing a little bit differently, which was very nice to hear. So, yeah. Can I sit down yet?
Commissioner Fisher, then Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Shaw. Thank you, Miss, for being there. I do hear your cry. And the government does move slow, and there does need to be changes. Nothing's perfect. But I will tell you that I have one right across the alley from my house, and I live all the way down by the municipal golf course. And it took about 18 months, and with the help of community enrichment, Ed Randall and his crew, the Sheriff's Department, and others, we finally got a petition and sent it to Judge Kilmer. And we had a hearing with Judge Kilmer, and we did get the problem alleviated, and they gave them 7 days to evacuate the property. So there is a proper procedure, there is protocol, and there's a way to go about it. And we, as commissioners, are the legislative branch, and we hear your cry, but the enforcement is the law enforcement. Then you got the judicial system. The county attorney's office is packed, they're crowded. Sometimes if you get a petition with a few neighbors to sign it with some directives in it, and maybe send a copy to a city court judge, maybe you'll get some help. I can't guarantee it, but I will tell you with what we went through for about 18 months, Ed Randall, the sheriff's department, and the Glather and the neighbors, we got some squatters evicted, and the property's coming around. So hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allison, appreciating you guys just keep beating the drum. I know the process sucks, but also trust the process and just keep your voice, keep rocking, keep bugging community Richmond. You're not bugging them. Yeah, I mean, it's just it is a pain. You guys are going to go through, even to get a car moved, it is a pain. But keep her going. Just keep rocking, and it'll get better. And I do commend you guys for doing what you're doing. It does. We all have them in our neighborhood. It's all over our neighborhood, or all over our community. There are a couple right in my area as well. So I mean, again, keep beating the drum.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mankins?
Thank you, Madam Shaw. Thank you, Allison, today for being here again and continuing your fight. Like Margie said earlier, it takes a village to get this accomplished. But I also want to remember that this was new to me, is that Chief Executive Gallagher said that cleanup would be October 23rd. Mm-hmm. And I know that you stated earlier that you were thinking about doing it on your own. I don't know if, it takes a lot of people to get organized to do it, but if something like Chief Executive Gallagher and Community Enrichment and Montana Tech are going to do something October 23rd, hopefully we can still have those same amount of volunteers that you're talking about and work together in order for us to get a better cleanup. So I know that was news to me, and when we heard that you saying in 2 weeks, I just probably would think about maybe getting those collaboration together for that October 23rd.
I did reach out to Montana Tech in July and ask them to be a part of this. I pitched it as, a community-wide, let's do this every year. I didn't hear back from them.
And again, I believe that Chief Executive Gallagher would not go on the record and say that Montana Tech would partner with us on October 23rd unless Montana Tech is going to cooperate with us. So I believe within our chief and what he's doing in community enrichment, and Montana Tech will be there October 23rd with a cleanup.
Sorry, Eric, I didn't quite.
October 23rd?
Yeah.
And that Montana Tech and Chief Executive would not go on the record and state that October 23rd and Montana Tech would collaborate with in community enrichment and everyone to have that cleanup on October 23rd.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chief Executive Gallagher?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw. I'm sorry. Allison, on that, it's every year Montana Tech does a day of service and they get their groups together, and that's kind of like the collaboration of that. And so in the summer, they don't have their kids back for the most part. And this is a weekend where they don't have a football game, so there won't be any interference with other activities and stuff. And so they did this last year. They did a day of service that was like cleaned up the trails and did things more on the uptown and closer to Montana Tech. Been collaborating with them and talking about cleaning up different things. We did meet with Chancellor Cook, and we've pretty much coordinated. I didn't want to announce it until it was confirmed that was the day and that we were going to do this. The only one thing that can happen, which has happened in the past with their day of service, is weather could impact us, and if they do that, they reschedule it to another time. But that's when they pull all of their resources together and all their groups, and they collectively promote this for all their kids on campus within their clubs.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah, I understood that. I wasn't sure what you were saying, but I understood that he was working on a cleanup since we spoke. I just think every year, and maybe it should just be each commissioner, like Greeley had done theirs. I spoke with Commissioner Reardon, and so that's all I was saying. My proposal was that we continue to do this every year so it doesn't get so out of hand, and make it a real collaborative effort to come into the neighborhoods with maybe some different services that some of these people really desperately need. So that was all.
And I might add too that I've been here, done this for 15 years now, and I have seen when we try to do a layer of government to go out and try to do something like call a neighborhood meeting or something like that, but maybe 5 people will show up. But if it's coordinated by the individuals and the citizens without an extra layer of government, although we would certainly be there, but we found that so many times when we had tried to pull together a neighborhood meeting. My district was right here, and we would be at the big, at Lexington Fire Station, and Big Butte, they call it. And I tried one, and maybe 5 or 6 people showed up, and mostly they were county employees because, we were hoping to get citizens to ask questions. So just so you know, we don't make that layer of government. We don't think it's the best way to do things, but we're certainly willing to help out in any way we can. But it really has to come from the citizens, and I think that's the most productive way of doing it. That's my take on it after all these years. So. And thank you again, Allison, for coming, and everyone else too. We want to hear from a lot of people, and we don't mind if you come in and make comments, and of course we need a communication to formally put it on our agenda because everything has to be public, and we publish our agenda. And but don't give up hope, and if you see it, say it. And my comment to living up here and went through a lot of this, I would say, you know what, I'm staying and you're leaving. It's just a matter of time as far as, getting people to follow the law. And we're homeowners, we're invested, and it just makes a huge difference than somebody that just comes in and really disrupts things with no consideration. And we're all feeling it, and it's very frustrating. We need our peace and joy back, that's what I always say too. So whatever we can do, I know Ed is in the back, and I know he's been as helpful as he can be. I mean, they have to follow the law, like Commissioner Shea said. And it has to be done in a certain way, or we can get sued. I mean, seriously, this is taxpayers' money. We don't want to do anything that's going to create a situation where, we've got ourselves in a sling, so to speak. So we have to follow the law. It takes time. I know even just getting just getting a car off the street, it's private property. We can't just pick it up and take it. But even if it does go to a junkyard, they have to go through the paperwork to release it, to have it, smashed or whatever. So, and I don't believe there's any room, I could be wrong, and maybe Chief Executive Gallagher could tell me, or the sheriff, I don't know that we have room for any more, or Ed, for any more vehicles. It's just, where do you put them? We don't take them to the landfill anymore.
Thank you.
But that might be a good one to ask Ed Lester for. Sheriff Lester?
Madam Chair, members of the council, yes, right now I think we are full at the abandoned junk vehicle yard. I wanted to just address some of the things. Believe me, I'm as frustrated as these neighbors are here. These things keep me awake as much as anybody. We partner with Action Inc., we partner with CCCS, we partner with Community Enrichment, we partner with just about everybody we can to try and deal with all of these issues, but right now, with the pandemic and a jail with 110 people that's built for 72, the correctional system's overloaded. Just about every treatment center in the state's full, and the system is just overloaded right now, and there's relief in sight, but I do intend to come up with a plan to assign particular officers to these particular areas, so when these folks have complaints, they are able to deal with an officer that's familiar with the issues, and they're not dealing with a separate officer that's not informed about the issues every time. That plan worked very well in the Goodwin Street area. The problem is those same folks are now living in another area and causing us just as many problems as they did on Goodwin Street. So it's a matter of, I appreciate the neighbors coming out, and I'm excited that we have neighborhood watches set up in a number of different areas, 4 or 5 that within the last couple of months that show that these folks are deeply concerned, and so am I, and we're not taking it lightly by any stretch. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that, and we'll continue to do the best we can. The one thing I'd like to leave you with is every officer in our department carries Narcan, which is a antidote for opioid overdoses. When people stop breathing when they take an opioid overdose, we can administer Narcan. Now, in 1989, when I started, I couldn't envision that. During the time that we've been carrying Narcan, I think we're right around 30 administers where we actually saved somebody's life with Narcan who was not going to probably make it to the hospital. And that's just police officers. That's not counting the fire department and the ambulance. And of course, they also have follow-up doses at the hospital. So that's something that we've been doing, and that's the state of affairs when our officers are actually carrying Narcan now for opioid overdoses. So we're certainly never going to give up, and if I were to tell you we couldn't do better, you'll know that I'm not telling the truth. We can. I will also never tell you we have enough cops or cars or detention officers. So if you hear that from me at any point, you'll know I've lost my mind, but we're working on it, and we'll continue to work with the neighbors, and I think with the level of excitement that's around the neighborhoods, I think we'll make progress. Thank you.
Questions for Sheriff Lester, Commissioner O'Neill, and then Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Sheriff Lester. Regarding the junk vehicle, saying that you mentioned that there's nowhere to put them. We're at capacity. Can we reach out to other junkyards? In that statement, is that saying that we can't get junk vehicles and we have nowhere to put them?
Well, what that is, pardon me, Madam Chair, what we have to do is go through the process to get the owners of those vehicles notified through certified mail. When we get those back, then we deliver them to the junkyards, and then the junkyard can either sell the vehicle if it's of any value or get it destroyed. So the wrecking yard that we're currently using is full, but we anticipate getting them some this paperwork out so they can move some of those vehicles, and we'll be able to start again with abandoned vehicles. But right now, we're just, I don't think we're going to have enough to get all the abandoned vehicles in there, but we can move some of the ones that are more conspicuous and causing the problems. But we've never reached out to another junkyard. This junkyard's locally here, and they're good about holding vehicles and handling the paperwork. But so that's what we need to do. We need to just make sure that they get the proper paperwork and can move some of these vehicles.
Commissioner Shea?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is kind of piggybacking off of Commissioner O'Neill. Am I understanding correctly that we have our own storage facility for the junk vehicles, or do they all go to a private junkyard for storage?
Sure,
and then I
Lester.
have a follow-up too, please.
No, Madam Chair, thank you. No, this is a private yard with a contract to handle our junk vehicles.
Okay, follow-up, please.
Follow-up, Commissioner Shea.
Is there any reason why we couldn't use one of our surplus properties to store some additional junk vehicles? I know there's a lot that goes into that, but I mean, the answer is always no if you don't ask the question, right?
Sheriff Lester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's something we haven't looked at. I think if we did, we'd have to secure it so that we don't have people taking parts and turning it into another problem area. So that's always a double-edged sword. So we can certainly look into that. It's not a bad idea. I just don't know how we do it.
Commissioner Reardon, and then Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Both Eds, Ed Randall, Ed Lester, I thank you personally for the progress that's being made, especially down in the Iron Street District and that. Also to Mr. Gallagher, Chief Executive Gallagher, for cleanups and that. One guy, though, I'd really like to recognize, and he's been at all the meetings and all that, and he brings a lot of energy and promise, and that's Officer Hardy. And I think that he's on top of what he does. He's very professional what he does, and he keeps people informed about what's going on. And probably everybody in this room has been to one of these meetings, and they start out like pretty hectic and all that, you know, and then after a while everything sets in, and then he gets up there and basically explains what's going on and all that. And I think with the people that we have up here tonight, a lot of good things have happened to that. They realize what they can and can't do, but the thing about it is their eyes are always open. And I think he brings that satisfaction that every question that was asked about him is just call. If you see something, call. And I think that that's what we have to do right now, and there's a lot of positive things going on in that area down there that weren't going on for quite a while. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I know it isn't easy. People complain, they bitch, excuse the language, they moan, or whatever, but the thing about it is that people are finally coming together and getting some assistance, and it's a great start. So I wanted to thank everybody here for that. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm totally stuck on the junk car thing. I'm going to be up all night texting Ed Randall and you too, Sheriff. I just really think that we're on this subject now. If that's the case, that we're over capacity, I think we, as a community, this is definitely a layup to get rid of the junk vehicles. We can easily contract out with some other institutions that have wreckers, and there are plenty of places. I think if right now as this is happening, again, I feel like this is a really, really easy thing to do. I could be wrong, but I don't know how we go on, if I can meet you guys tomorrow, but there's money to move these and store them. We can store them at the landfill. I just think if we have one specific place that we're doing it, and that place is over capacity, this is not like building a new jail. This is like something we can really enforce and make happen. There's 30-plus tow trucks in towns with guys that'll easily go pick these up. I think that, again, I don't know, like I'm just bouncing in my seat over here to figure out how that is a layup for us to do, to get rid of that. An absolute layup, and there's no excuses, by no means, that we can't figure that out. That's easy. So I'd love to help or sit down, or I'll even rent a tow truck and get my tow truck license. Man, I just think that, like, we have all these hard things we're trying to accomplish, all these obstacles. This one is not that difficult, in my opinion. So thank you.
Sheriff Lester?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wouldn't call it a layup. I'm not sure that you're not overestimating by about 7 times the tow trucks that you're seeing. I'm all for working with it to try and fix it, don't get me wrong, but it's not as simple as just towing these vehicles away, because we have a process we have to follow, which takes time. And so if you want to help us, I'm happy to do that, and we can explain how we need to do this with you and come up with a plan to maybe do it better. I'm never going to tell you we're doing it right, but I'm not sure you got a grip on what exactly has to be done to tow the vehicles, and the fact that when we post these vehicles as abandoned or junk, and they've got 5 days to move them, a lot of times those vehicles are moved, but they're in another place, and so then you post them for 5 days, and then you're chasing them around doing that. So there's a lot more moving parts than just hooking up a tow truck, but I'm happy to work with you and see if we can come up with a better plan.
Commissioner Callahan?
Thanks, Chairman Shaw. And this is kind of on the end of the junk vehicles or the abandoned vehicles, is, you know, when they abandon these vehicles, a lot of times they'll take the plate off so you don't know whose it is to go after them or whatever. So is the process the same, or if there's no plates on it, is it a junk vehicle you can haul away, or do you have to still go through the whole process?
Well, junk vehicles have a value, and I think Ed may be able to tell you what that value is. Abandoned vehicles, technically, you can park your car on in a particular parking spot for 2 days. And then after that, it's an abandoned vehicle. Now, if we did that, we wouldn't have anybody's cars on the street. I mean, because lots of people have more than one car, and they're, you know, that vehicle sometimes parked there for several days and it's not an issue. The issue is more so that vehicles that are flat tires and falling apart and not licensed, and then you get them and sometimes they're in a private lot, which is, we don't tow vehicles from private lots. I mean, the property owner is responsible for the vehicle that's on the private lot. I'm running my mask into the microphone here. So that's another issue. When there's a vehicle that's on a private property, that's another issue that we have to deal with the property owner versus a vehicle that's on the street. So that's the issues that we're seeing. A lot of those vehicles are on private lots where people are getting inside the car and camping and sleeping and living in those vehicles, and they're actually on private property. So those vehicles are up to the owner of the property to remove.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
Okay, just an example of, you know, there's a car just on Main Street down here, probably a half a block below Platinum, right below the high school. It's got painted on it, for sale, $500. They took the license plates off, so you can't ticket it because you don't know who owns it, whatever. It's been there at least 3 months. What do we do to fix those issues? Do we have to go through that same process, or can we just?
Well, you can.
Sheriff Lester?
Madam Chair, you can call us. We will tag it, and if it's not there, if it's not moved in 5 days, then we'll just tow it. But that's the issue with the lot that's full also. So we do the best we can to try and run the VIN number and contact the owner and give them an opportunity to move it before we have to tow it away. And, you know, we get lip service sometimes too, where yeah, all right, I'll get it out of there, and then they don't. Or they move it 25 feet up the street, and now we start over again. So it's not as hard as we're making it, but it's not as easy as it looks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw. Just one last note. Into this car thing, you know, you crush cars, and that has to do with the price of scrap. When the price of scrap is down, the wrecking yards, Red Wrecker, Decker, any of them people, they hold them cars till the price of scrap goes up. And then when the price of scrap goes up, they ship all them cars. Then the sheriff has an opportunity to ship more cars to the wrecking yard. When the price of scrap's down, it don't. So this is part of the deal. When the price of scrap is up, the wrecker will go haul it for $100 for Eddie Randall or whatever, but when the price of scrap is down, they don't want to haul him, and he's only got so much in the budget to do it. So it's a big vicious circle, and we will find an end sometime. Thank you.
Anything further for Commissioner O'Neill? Final question? Go ahead. No, okay, all right. Anything else on this matter?
That's all I got.
Thank you, Ed. We
Thanks.
appreciate it. I saw Trudy had her hand up, and I will call on you just to make a comment or, yeah, come up to the microphone.
Of Tia Fox, who we helped over the weekend, she was a woman with a disability mentally, and those vehicles were not hers. I mean, and I offered to pay for that motorhome to get moved out of my own pocket. And I called Red Wrecker, and they said they would not move a motorhome. And then I tried a private company, and that's when this man that was in there, the police said he was gone, so I thought he was gone. But luckily I had my bear spray, because the junk guy said, hey, look in there and see if it's wood or metal, and if it's metal, I'll take it. So I went over there, and then this weirdo was still in there, you know? So the problem with what he's talking about, it's not always belonging to those people. It gets dumped on their property, and they don't have the financial means. I mean, I was offering to pay because I wanted to help her so bad. But it's not their vehicle. They're getting dumped on their properties. So, and then this one on Iron Street, it's been there 2 years, and it's been called in, and it even has a ticket on it. It had 2 tickets on it, and it's been parked there for 2 years, right on Iron Street. So I don't know about taking time. How much time does it take? If you want help figuring out what we can do, I'll jump on board with that, you know? Because, yeah, it's not fair to the landowner if they don't have, like Tia, she didn't have $200 per car. The guy had 8 cars parked on her lot, plus a motorhome that was gonna cost $500 when it came down to it. And then it just, you know, then we just got the community to help. But so, I mean, that's not, you know, I don't know. That's just what I
So
wanted to say. Because I'm walking the neighborhood and I'm talking to people and trying to help people, so that's what I
Thank you.
found.
I do believe that if, and Sheriff Lester, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that if somebody is parking their car on your property, they are trespassing. And I believe that there's got to be something on the books that would handle that, I would imagine. But call me crazy. Sheriff Lester.
Or I'll just call you Madam Chair. The issue isn't necessarily, the car can't commit trespassing.
Right.
The person who put it there and is in the car and on the property unauthorized can be charged with trespassing. The issue is with this guy, we'd go kick him out and he'd leave, but the RV was still there. So when we left, after whatever period of time, he'd come back and be back in the RV. And so we can arrest him and even take him to jail, but trespassing right now is a pretty low bond. He'll be back. And so the vehicle was a bigger issue than the trespassing itself.
I see. Okay, thank you. Anything further on this subject? I just want to thank everybody again for coming tonight. Oh, excuse me. You'd have to come up to the microphone if that's okay? Thank you so much. And no, and just, we are inviting you to come to the mic, but give us your name and address, please, for the record. Oh, hello there, Andrea.
Is this one right? Is that right? Okay. Can you hear me okay? Sorry, I'm so short. I just wanted to offer this for the I can't even say the word, Judiciary Committee, if they do want it. I took the time to do a little research myself, just because you had said it was in the research process for the ordinances dealing with nuisance and crime cases. What I did is I called the Spokane Police Department and got a really great guy who's the code enforcement officer. And it's a very simple process, the way that they have it written out. So I did write how they do it. And when the ordinances, I did get some very interesting information that I have here. But it basically, and this kind of goes to Sheriff Lester, and honest to God, I can't even imagine being a police officer or even on the enrichment community right now, as well as someone who has to deal with Action Inc. or the homelessness. Let's talk about front lines. But this, I believe, these ordinances, I guess I'll go back and say that yes, the laws are on the book. No question that the laws are already there. But how do you enforce the laws? I mean, for 6 years on Goodwin, 6 years, the police would come. How much taxpayer money is that? How many dispatches calls did we have to do? Around 300 we did, I'm sure, every day, maybe 3, 4, 6 times a day. How much taxpayer money is 6 years? This is an issue when we write specific ordinances. These are extremely specific. You've got excited neighbors now that are willing to work on these things, these processes. So what Spokane does is they have 6 precincts, I believe. They have what they call neighborhood resource officers, which I don't know exactly our police department how we have it, but what they do is they separate out in their 6 precincts, they separate these neighborhood resource officers. And I think they're specific to that job. Then, this is really interesting, but inside of those neighborhoods, whether it's just one neighborhood or several neighborhoods together in those precincts, they have what's called a cop shop. And it stands for Citizens on Patrol, which I thought was kind of cute. But in those cop shops, what they do is they have volunteer neighbors, which, I'd be right there. John Schleckenmeyer would be right there. Allison would be right, all these people back here would probably be right there. And the point of those are, there is a communication liaison between the neighborhood resource officer, the cop shops of each neighborhood, and the police department, which has like maybe a special civil enforcement unit. So say there's a neighbor who doesn't want retaliation from a drug nuisance problem. Well, they can go to the cop shop with these neighborhood volunteers and say, I think this is going on. I think this is a nuisance issue I'm dealing with. So then the volunteer then talks to the neighborhood police officer, the neighborhood resource police officer, who then talks to the city. But also the neighborhood police officer talks to that citizen who thinks there's a nuisance problem going on and says, okay, well, this is what nuisance is. Nuisance is this, 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 and educates them on what a nuisance issue is, rather than just like, well, it's not just yelling at your neighbor across the way, it's not just this. So they're an education person in both. If they believe there's a nuisance issue, they say, this is what a nuisance issue is, as opposed to this. This is how to keep records. This is how to pad the file in case to prove. So then once it's proven, okay, now we've got one proof. So whether it's 6 months or 12 months time, and you do 3 citations, 5 citations, however you work it out, this will take the weight off. I honestly believe this will take the weight off of all the things that the police have to do by allowing just one resource officer to be a liaison, and take a lot of stuff off of the community enrichment to have to deal with any. Of course, they don't deal with like criminal they're amazing what they do, but they can't deal with criminal or nuisance issues, other nuisance issues, drug nuisance issues. So I think that by doing those types of things, the citizens are really excited to get involved and take care of this. The police are excited to. I can't imagine being a police officer and going to the doors like we watched for just 1 year, them coming and saying, well, all you can do is just keep calling. That's what I've heard all night. All we can do is just keep the process going. Well, no, that's not all we can do. That's not at all we can do. We can certainly take care of this. We have to take this law and we have to write it into specific ordinances that can be enforced by a few police officers that can then talk to the city police officers. However, but we can do specific things with that law. Without writing it into ordinances, we'll keep hitting our heads against a brick wall. I promise you. People for 6 years on Goodwood, 6 years, people will keep coming back going, well, these are happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Well, just keep calling in, you're doing great. No, we need to start taking care of this. Every city in America takes care of this. We can do it too. And so I do have, this is really interesting, I found a draft, and P.S., the nuisance laws in Washington are almost verbatim the same as ours. So it is it's specific to Washington state laws, but they're, most nuisance laws say the same thing. We're trying to keep the people safe. We want you to feel peace and safety in your yards. We want you to be able to use your own property safely, peacefully. We don't want you to hear, we don't want lewd acts happening. We don't want constant traffic where you're afraid kids are going to get hit. On and on and on. Well, that's what happened to us every day. So for the poor people on Goodwin that were there for 6 years, we were only there 1. I can't believe it. They dealt with that every day. So these things, anyway, this was a draft where they just started working on it. So I think it's interesting. They have a lot of stuff crossed off that they themselves just must have decided, oh, that's not going to work. So I did bring that if you do want it. I think it's one of their, I don't know which draft it was, but I happened to just find that. I thought it was interesting. And then this one is their actual nuisance one that is very clear. It's got definitions very clearly, and then it's got step by step the processes that they take to cite people and how they go about proving it, and how they go about, going through the whole process, when this happens, then this happens. When this happens, then this happens. If it goes, if it goes to the county attorney, this. It's step by step. So this is something that might be of interest to you guys. So, and also Luis Garcia was extremely well-educated. I'd be willing to go out and volunteer and educate people on what nuisance is, if need be as well. So when we get to that point, I'd be happy to be a volunteer at some kind of neighborhood cop shop or be a liaison to anyone. So, and I think that all of these people would be as well. that were here tonight, so.
Thank
so
you,
thank
Andrea.
you.
Thank you, and just hang on a second, Commissioner Shea had a comment,
Oh,
so.
yes.
Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Andre, you know that you're invaluable to me. I love your spunk. I will take copies of that, but I do believe that the county attorney has already spoken to somebody in Spokane.
Sure, great.
If I'm not mistaken, but I would love to have copies.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Anything else? I would just, again, thank everyone for coming. We've got some great conversations. We're all in this together. There's not one of us that doesn't have something going on in their neighborhood, and we all get calls, but we don't have the authority to do anything. We just are, we're your liaison between the departments, and we can always give you ideas and places to call. So without any further ado, Commissioner Frederickson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to note and place communication number 2021-472 on file.
We have a motion and a second to note and place communication 2021-472 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Anyone care to change their vote? If I can get mine up there. Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Motion passes, and thanks again, Allison. Okay, moving on, just a couple other things before we adjourn. We have an opportunity for any public comment on any public matter not on the agenda. This is a trick question. Anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, I don't see anyone jumping up to the microphone. Anything else to come before us this evening? Don't forget, now we don't have council next week. Woo-hoo. Can I say woo-hoo? All right, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Motion to adjourn. Second. Motion adjourned. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks, everyone.